The key was still warm in my palm, pressed so tight it left a mark. I'd waited for this day, sacrificed, bled, and worked myself raw, just to hold it. My first apartment. My own home. But before I could step forward, a laugh ripped through the air. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Not yours, Claire. My father's voice boomed, sharp and mocking. Thomas Donovan had always enjoyed making me small in front of others, but this time, it cut deeper than ever. What? I froze, my smile collapsing. My mother, Margaret, strutted forward in her pearls and pressed blazer, her eyes slicing into me. We've decided. Vanessa will be living here. She deserves it more. My younger sister, Vanessa, already stepped closer, her manicured hand reaching greedily. Oh my God, really? Thank you, Mom, Dad. The sound of her excitement burned like acid in my chest. No, I snapped, clutching the key. My hands shook, not with fear, but with fury. This is mine. I worked for this. Every cent, every shift, I earned this place. Thomas didn't flinch. Instead, he yanked the key right out of my hand and dangled it in front of Vanessa like a prize. Claire, stop embarrassing yourself. You never needed a place anyway. You waste your life bouncing between dead-end jobs. Vanessa? She's the daughter who'll actually make something of herself. Margaret smirked, her voice low but cutting. We're proud of her. You? Not so much. That's why she deserves it more. The neighbors gathered in the hallway gasped, whispering behind cupped hands. Every face felt like a spotlight, every murmur like a knife carving at my skin. Vanessa grabbed the key, her smile smug, victorious. Guess I'm moving in, sis. Better luck next time. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream, to tear the walls down around me. Instead, the words slipped out in a whisper. You're stealing from me. You've always been dramatic, Thomas scoffed. Grow up. And then, the sound of polished shoes echoed behind me. Heavy, certain, unshakable. Every whisper stopped. Every head turned.
Ethan.
My husband. He filled the narrow hall with his presence, his charcoal suit catching the overhead light, his gaze sharp enough to freeze my parents in place. Neighbors stepped aside, almost instinctively, as if power radiated from him. Vanessa's smug grin faltered. Margaret's posture stiffened. Even Thomas's confident smirk wavered. Ethan walked straight toward me, slipping an arm around my waist. His voice was low, but commanding. Claire. He kissed my temple softly, then turned his icy gaze on my family. Without another word, he pulled out a sleek folder, heavy with embossed seals, and dropped it on the reception desk with a thud that made everyone flinch. This, he said, his tone cutting through the silence, is proof that not only does Claire own this apartment, she owns the entire building. Gasps filled the air. Vanessa's hand shook around the stolen key. My parents stared like the floor had just been ripped out beneath them. And for the first time that day, I smiled. The hall was so quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat. My father's hand twitched as if he wanted to snatch the folder Ethan had slammed down, but he didn't dare. The neighbors who had gathered leaned in, eyes wide, waiting for the explosion. What do you mean, she owns the building? Thomas finally managed, his voice cracking despite the stern mask he wore. Ethan didn't even look at him at first. He kept his arm around my waist, steadying me as if every ounce of anger in my chest could spill over any second. Then, slowly, he turned his piercing gaze on my father. Exactly what I said, Ethan replied coldly. He flipped open the folder, sliding out a thick sheaf of documents stamped with signatures and seals.
Deeds.
Contracts. Everything is under Claire Donovan's name. The apartment, the floors above, the retail spaces below, this entire property is hers. Gasps erupted through the crowd. A neighbor actually dropped her grocery bag, the sound of apples rolling across the tiles echoing down the hall. Vanessa clutched the key so tightly her knuckles went white. That's not possible, she stammered, shaking her head. She doesn't have that kind of money. Careful. Ethan cut in, his voice like ice. Don't mistake what you think you know for truth. Margaret stepped forward, her smile shaky, but her words sharp. This is ridiculous. Claire could never manage something like this. She can barely keep a steady job. That's when Ethan's lips curved into the faintest smirk. Which is why she married me. The words dropped like thunder. Every eye in the hall snapped back to me. My parents' faces drained of color as if the ground beneath them had collapsed. Thomas's voice came out as a hiss. You married him? I straightened, no longer shaking, no longer small. I looked my father dead in the eye. Yes. And unlike you, Ethan believed in me when no one else did. He stood by me while I scraped for every dollar. He never mocked me for not being enough. He saw my worth. For once, my voice didn't tremble. It cut. Ethan's arm tightened around me, a silent show of strength. He pulled another document from the folder and slid it across the desk. Here's the part you'll like, Thomas. I know you've always been obsessed with money. See that stamp? Paid in full. No mortgage. No loans. No debts. Claire is the sole owner. The crowd murmured louder. Phones were already out. Neighbors recording, whispering, some even smiling like they'd just witnessed justice itself. Vanessa's jaw dropped. But you said you were saving for years, Claire. You said this apartment was your dream. You lied. I turned to her, finally letting the fury show in my eyes. I didn't lie, Vanessa. I saved, I worked, I bled for this. But I also built a life beyond the one you all tried to trap me in. While you mocked me, I grew stronger. And now, I glanced at the folder, then back at her trembling hand clutching the key. You're standing in my hallway holding my key to my apartment in my building. Her face crumpled. She dropped the key as if it burned her. The metallic clink on the floor echoed through the hall. Margaret's voice turned shrill. This is absurd. You can't just walk in here and humiliate us. Ethan cut her off with a low, razor-sharp tone. Humiliate you? No, Margaret. That's what you did to Claire. In front of neighbors, in front of friends, for years. But today, he pointed to the folder, his eyes narrowing. Today the world sees the truth. She's not the failure you painted her as. She's the owner. And you are nothing more than trespassers. The word hit them like a slap. Thomas staggered back a step, his face blotched red with anger and shame. This is insane. She's our daughter. We were only trying to control me, I snapped, cutting him off for the first time in my life. My voice rang out, strong, commanding. All my life, you've decided what I deserve and what I don't. You took my choices, belittled me, made me feel worthless. But not anymore. Not today. For a long, tense moment, no one spoke. The hallway buzzed with the weight of what had just been said. Then Ethan reached down, picked up the fallen key, and pressed it back into my hand. Claire Donovan, he said softly but loud enough for everyone to hear. This belongs to you. And no one can take it away again. The silence broke with whispers. Neighbors clapped quietly, some nodding in approval. Others looked away from my parents, disgusted. Vanessa's face turned pale. Mom, Dad, let's just go. Margaret sputtered. We're not going anywhere. But Thomas grabbed her arm, his pride crumbling as reality sank in. His eyes flicked between Ethan and me, his voice bitter but weak. This isn't over. I met his glare without flinching. Oh, it is. And with that, Ethan opened the apartment door, my apartment, and guided me inside. The sound of the door slamming shut behind us felt like the final nail in the coffin of everything they'd tried to steal. But deep inside, I knew this wasn't just about the apartment. This was the start of something bigger. A war I never asked for, but one I was finally ready to win. The door shut, muffling the chaos outside. My chest heaved, adrenaline still rushing through my veins. I should have felt victorious, but instead, I felt raw, trembling, like every nerve in my body had been lit on fire. Ethan set the folder down on the granite counter of the kitchen and turned to me.
His voice softened.
Claire, breathe. They can't hurt you anymore. But even as he said it, a sharp knock rattled the door. Then another, louder, angrier. My father's voice thundered from the hallway. Claire, open this door right now. You don't walk away from your family like this. My jaw clenched. The words weren't new. I'd heard variations of them my whole life, whenever I tried to stand on my own. Only this time, I wasn't that weak girl anymore. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Do you want me to handle this? I shook my head, even as my legs shook beneath me.
No.
Not anymore. They need to hear me. I opened the door. The hallway was still crowded, neighbors pretending to mind their own business, but hanging on every word. Thomas, my father, stood rigid, his fists balled at his sides. Margaret, my mother, looked pale but defiant. Vanessa hid behind them, her lips pressed thin, the keys she had once clung to gone from her hand. You think this is over? Thomas growled. You humiliated us in front of everyone. You made us look like beggars at our own daughter's home. Do you know what people will say? I held his gaze, my voice steady despite the quiver in my chest. For once, they'll say the truth. That I'm not the weak one. That I worked for something, and it's mine. You can't rewrite that anymore. Margaret sneered. Don't be dramatic, Claire. We're your parents. We gave you everything. Everything. I cut her off, my voice rising, stronger than I'd ever heard it. You gave me nothing but shame. Every time I failed, you reminded me. Every time I succeeded, you ignored me. And when I finally had something of my own, you tried to steal it for Vanessa. The crowd shifted. People exchanged looks, nodding quietly. My parents weren't just facing me anymore. They were facing judgment from everyone around them. Ethan stepped beside me, his tone low but cutting. Thomas. Margaret. This isn't your stage anymore. Claire doesn't need your approval, and she doesn't need your permission. She's done being your puppet. My father's jaw ticked. For a second, I thought he might explode. But instead, he gave a bitter laugh. You really think this man saves you? You think his money makes you better than us? No, I said firmly. His respect does. Something you never gave me. The words landed heavier than I expected. My mother's lips trembled. My father's face flushed, not from anger, but from something uglier, exposed weakness. Vanessa, desperate to shift the weight, spoke up for the first time. Claire, you don't get it. You've always been average. I'm the one with potential. I'm the one they invested in. They only wanted what's best for me because they knew you'd never be more than ordinary. Her words sliced, but instead of bleeding, I felt steel rise inside me. I stepped closer, my voice like a blade. You're right, Vanessa. I was ordinary. But ordinary doesn't break. Ordinary learns how to survive, how to build, how to fight when no one's in their corner. And now, I gestured toward Ethan, toward the documents, toward the apartment that was mine. Ordinary is the one standing while you're all scrambling. Her face went red. You'll regret this. Ethan chuckled darkly. No, Vanessa. You will. The silence that followed was suffocating. My father finally spoke, his voice tight. You think money protects you? This isn't over. We'll find another way. Ethan's eyes hardened, his voice calm but laced with quiet threat. Try it, and you'll find that Claire is not the girl you pushed around anymore. She has the law, she has power, and she has me. Push her again, and you'll regret it. Thomas looked like he wanted to lunge forward, but Margaret pulled him back, her nails digging into his sleeve. Her eyes darted to the neighbors, who still whispered, still recorded. She knew they had already lost. They turned to leave, their pride in ruins. Vanessa lingered for one last bitter glare before following them, her heels clicking furiously down the hall. The moment they were gone, the neighbors broke into quiet applause, small, hesitant at first, but real. I blinked, stunned. For once, the crowd wasn't laughing at me. They were standing with me. Ethan closed the door again, pulling me into his chest. His voice softened. You did it. Not me. You stood up to them. For the first time in years, I believed him. The fear that had lived inside me, The weight of their control, it was gone. All that was left was fire. But deep down, I knew this wasn't finished. My parents weren't walking away quietly. And Vanessa? She'd never accept defeat. And that meant the real battle was only beginning. The apartment was finally quiet, but my nerves weren't. I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the folder on the table, my chest heavy with both relief and dread. Ethan poured me a glass of water and handed it over, his eyes studying me. "They won't stop here," I whispered. "I know," he admitted, "but that's why we prepared for this." His tone made me pause.
Prepared?
Before I could ask, my phone buzzed violently across the table. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Vanessa's voice hissed through the line. "You think you won? You humiliated us. You embarrassed Dad in front of everyone. Do you have any idea what that did to our family's name?" I closed my eyes, exhaustion flooding me. "Vanessa, the only people who destroyed your reputation are you and our parents. Not me." "You're going to regret this," she snapped. "You'll see." And the line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly. Ethan's hand rested on my shoulder, steady. "Let them talk. Their power only existed because you gave it to them. Tonight, you proved you don't anymore." But Vanessa didn't waste time. Within hours, the whispers spread online. Posts, half-truths, and lies painted me as ungrateful, as someone who betrayed her own parents. Anonymous accounts flooded the building's social page, claiming I had tricked Ethan into everything. I scrolled through the screen, my stomach twisting. "They're trying to ruin me." Ethan calmly took the phone and set it aside. "Then, let's ruin their lives with the truth." He unlocked his briefcase again and pulled out another document, this one smaller, but heavier in its meaning. "I had this prepared in case your family tried anything. It's a legal notice. Trespassing, harassment, defamation, everything they're already guilty of. If they push harder, we push back harder." My breath caught. For years, I had no defense, no shield. And now I had more than protection. I had control. The next morning, as predicted, my parents returned with Vanessa at their side, their voices already raised in the lobby. But this time I didn't hide. I walked downstairs, Ethan at my side, the folder clutched in my hands. "Claire," Thomas barked, the veins in his neck straining. "Do you realize the damage you've done? We're your blood. We deserve respect." Neighbors gathered again, curious, whispering. But I didn't flinch. Not this time. "You're right," I said clearly, my voice steady. "You're my blood. But respect isn't given because of blood. It's earned. And you lost mine a long time ago." Margaret scoffed. "You think anyone believes you? You've poisoned this community against us." "No." I cut in, lifting the papers. "You did that yourselves. And if you don't leave me alone, these documents go straight to the authorities. Every word you've spread online, every time you've tried to steal from me, it all becomes evidence." Thomas's face drained of color. Vanessa's lips trembled, but she forced a sneer. "You wouldn't dare." Ethan's voice sliced through the air, cold and final. "Try us." The silence stretched. Neighbors exchanged looks. Someone even muttered, "She's right. You went too far." For the first time, my parents looked small. Stripped of the power they had clung to all my life, they had nothing left to threaten me with. Thomas finally turned away, shoulders slumped. Margaret followed, her eyes burning with humiliation. Vanessa lingered a moment longer, glaring at me like she could set me on fire with her stare, then stormed out after them. And just like that, they were gone. I exhaled, my hands shaking as the weight lifted. Ethan's arm wrapped around me, grounding me. "You did it," he whispered. I looked up at him, tears finally spilling, but they weren't from pain. They were from freedom. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the forgotten daughter, the weak one, the girl fighting for scraps of love. I was Claire Donovan, a woman who had taken back her voice, her power, her life. And as I stood in the lobby of the building I now owned, I realized the truth. They had tried to take everything from me. Instead, They had handed me the strength to finally rise.